Hey everyone. Well, one of the more frequent questions I am asked is what type of shoe, and more specifically, what model of shoe would I recommend for hiking, backpacking, and through hiking, just any outdoor pursuits in general. And I have normally kind of shied away from the question just because shoes are such a personal thing and you really need to make sure it fits your foot over someone else's foot. And actually in my previous video I kind of did just that. Although I did recommend getting trail runners or a light hiker over your traditional hiking boot, which I still recommend, not something I'm going to go into now, but just so you know. But anyways, I think now, just with the amount of times I've recommended this shoe and the high percentage of people that have liked it after I've recommended it, I kind of feel comfortable doing a review on this shoe and recommending it, at least recommending that you go try it out in store before you buy it, obviously, but maybe give it a try because this has been a really great shoe for me. So what I'm reviewing today is the Sportiva Wildcat shoe. If you want to see one that's not beat up, here it is. And this is a trail running shoe. It has a neutral sole and it's got some really nice features that kind of make it my shoe of choice, and it's been my shoe of choice for a while now. So I've put a lot of miles on these shoes. Actually, as you can see here, this is my most recent pair from the PCT, my final PCT pair, and this pair alone has seen 1,600 miles of trail, plus probably some bonus miles in there somewhere and pavement miles later. So these have a ton of miles on them, much more than most shoes ever see, and much more than most shoes would ever be able to even take. So I feel pretty comfortable recommending these just because I've put so much time into them and they have constantly been pretty much the perfect shoe for me in most situations. This is my most recent pair. I just bought this about a week ago at REI. Same pair, they've been carrying them there for quite some time now. And I believe this is my 7th pair, which may sound ridiculous, but it's not because the shoes aren't durable, it's just because I wear them all the time, and more specifically on through hikes, which just tend to eat up shoes. So on the AT, I used 2 pairs of these, and that survived. I didn't start in them, but within the first 200 miles, I switched to Wildcats and then had them the rest of the time. And on the PCT, I did that in 2 pairs. So I've come to the conclusion, and I can back this up with some other people that I know that have these shoes and wear them through hiking, that on average, your pair of Wildcats will get you about 1,000 trail miles, and possibly more, obviously 1,600 in this case, depending on how much you can tolerate not having tread and how much you can tolerate having some holes and tears in your shoe. And actually, the padding does tend to compact, but I'll get into that later. So anyways, let me start with why I like these shoes. I'm not gonna get into the whole trail runner versus hiking boot situation, but I will say that this shoe, while being light, actually offers quite a bit of support when you're backpacking or hiking. And one of the primary reasons is this plastic. It's a rigid plastic stabilizer on the back of the heel cup, and when you step into the shoe, your heel kind of slides into this plastic bit and it really just has a firm grip on your heel. So when you're going downhill, you're not sliding forward. When you're going uphill, your heel is not popping out. It's just a solid fit, and it really works well to hold your heel there. And that's one of the things with most shoes, is when your heel is moving around or when your toes are moving around too much, that's when the blisters start forming. So I will say that I have never had a blister because of these shoes, which is not something most people can say, especially through hiking. Blisters are pretty much a common trait on trail. But part of it may be my feet, part of it is probably the shoes, but I've never had a blister. So just take that into consideration. So, as I was saying, they're supportive, and the grip on these shoes is really nice. I've found it to be extremely grippy when you're walking up and down rocks, even wet rocks and roots, all of the above. It's never failed me until you start getting farther down the trail and you put some more miles on them. Around, I would say around mile 800, maybe 700 is when you start to notice these shoes breaking down a little bit, which is much higher than most shoes because your typical shoe is not going to last near that long, maybe 500 miles. Most people on trail are going through around 3 to 4 pairs of shoes, some even more than that, up to 6. I went through 2 pairs, so they definitely have the durability going for them. And but maybe I'll break down into that now. Around 700 to 800 miles, you're going to start to notice a couple of things. The material on the top of the shoe, near the toe on the inside, because you're constantly flexing like this, it starts to wear out, and you can see where this material hasn't quite ripped yet, but you can definitely see the wear going through the mesh netting on the outside here. And what that eventually becomes is a tear in the fabric here. So it's not a big deal. It doesn't really affect comfort of the shoe too much. It's just something to keep in mind. And also remember, this is around 700 or 800 miles, so that is far greater than any other shoe that I've seen. Also, around that time, you'll notice your tread starting to disappear. The extra grippy green rubber that you'll find on the outside of all the little tread here starts to wear out, and it just becomes your bottom of the shoe rubber, which is not as grippy, and you'll notice you're sliding more. So I would say however many miles you're getting out of these shoes beyond 700 or 800 kind of depends on your tolerance for slipping, for having holes in your shoes, and for having a little less cushioning just because it's been compacted over time. But anyways, back to the shoe. The grip is great. I really like having a rubber grip in between your arch here, because sometimes when you step on a root, if you have a plastic piece here, you'll just tend to slide right off the root and slip. This rubber really helps you grip, and it keeps you from falling when you really shouldn't be falling. So that's the comfort, the durability, and yeah, I guess there's not too much more to say. The grip's great, the support is great, the comfort is extremely comfortable. One thing I will say, with people with a wider foot, this is not a narrow shoe. I would call it maybe a kind of a medium shoe as far as width goes, but if you have an extremely wide foot, this may not be the shoe for you. One thing you can try though is going up a half size in your length, and what that'll allow is your toes to spread out a little bit more, because instead of being around here, your toes will be around here. They'll have a little bit more width to work with, and that your foot will probably still stay pretty secure in the shoe just due to the design. That's definitely worked for a couple people I've recommended the shoe to, but some people still can't quite fit into the shoe if they have a very wide foot. So they grip well, they support well, they're very durable. You might think that they're not quite so durable just because of the nature of the mesh on the outside, but I've found that it actually holds up very well. Probably better than just having a straight fabric on the outside. I've never had any problems with sticks getting in or anything like that. One thing to note is that this is a very breathable shoe. So if you're going through a lot of water, you're definitely going to get water on the inside of the shoe. It's not Gore-Tex or anything like that. And but because it's so breathable with the mesh, it actually allows the shoe to dry much faster the next day or the day after when it's not raining. So if you have a Gore-Tex shoe, it's going to stay wet for a couple days after you get the initial wet out and the initial rain, which is actually a lot worse than just having a mesh shoe that, yeah, it gets wet quicker than the Gore-Tex shoe, which is going to get wet no matter what anyways, but it'll dry out the next day within one day. So that is why I stick to mesh shoes. Obviously this does not always hold true. If you're hiking in the snow or in a very rainy place, you may want to go with Gore-Tex, but I'm not really going to go too much into that right now. So let's go ahead and get to the weight. I'll just stick with one shoe, and this is a brand new one. So that is 13.5 ounces. So that'll be 27 ounces for a pair of these shoes. And it's a little 3 ounces under a pound basically on each foot, which is much lighter than your typical leather hiking boot. And you'll notice that with a lightweight shoe like this, you'll be able to hike a lot longer and a lot more comfortably than you would with a big hiking boot. So yeah, that's my review of the Wildcat. I would definitely recommend it. However, as always, I would recommend going to the shoe store first and actually trying it on, making sure it fits your foot comfortably. And if it's not comfortable in the store, it's not going to be comfortable on the trail. So just make sure that everything feels good, your foot's not sliding around. And if you find them comfortable, these make a great shoe, as 7 pairs have attested to me. So hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you later.